Done. So I look dark, but we gotta let it breathe. Get the Facebook groups in here if I can get the thing to work. Hope everybody's having a wonderful night. Gotta wait for a couple green check marks here. And still spinning, still spinning, and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And there's still we got one.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. We're good to go.
Oh, awesome. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers, your ultimate Broncos podcast for all your latest and greatest news on your Denver Broncos. I'm Kenneth Booker, and joined with me here today is Mr. Erick Trickel. Erick, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. Draft time is here, and I have, outside of some of the hiring nonsense that's happened over the last 24 to 48
Mm-hmm.
hours, I've tuned out other stuff of it and just been focusing on getting stuff ready for the draft.
Nice. Yeah, I've been kind of looking into some players too. Just trying to keep up and just do a little bit on my side with the draft, whatever. I know you guys know so much about the draft. I'm really excited about learning about these players, and it makes me more excited for next year to follow college football a little bit more. I do follow it here and there, but it's not like I used to be when I was younger.
Mhm.
So I should know more about some of these players, but I'm excited to see some of their game tape.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun. I'm notorious. I don't really watch games live.
Hmm.
I have this weird thing about it of, watching them games as the season goes on, and watching them live, you can tend to fall into the hype of a player a
Hmm.
little bit more. At least that's the way I feel. So I'll watch games during the season, but I don't start until October. And when I'm watching October, I'm watching like games from the first couple weeks.
Okay.
And I'm going back and watching those and seeing how they go. So uh it's always fun to hear the discussions that are going on about
Hmm.
that. Especially, in our group chat with Nick, him bringing up guys, but it's also funny because he'll bring up guys who aren't draft eligible, and I won't pay any attention to guys who aren't draft eligible until they're draft eligible. So he's
Yeah.
typing up the one Alabama freshman receiver and the Ohio State freshman receiver, and I'm just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Which is always a fun conversation to have. But yeah, it's a good time. I think I said this last week. Chad texted me after I sent him an article after they lost to the Bills in the playoffs, and he says, "Now's your time." And
Yeah.
I love this time of year. The draft is like a second Christmas for me. I love digging into these guys. I love learning about these guys. And I love seeing what the different teams do and hearing all the different rumors that come out too about what player this team likes or doesn't like.
Yeah. I think my first article for Mile High Huddle was what was his name? The receiver out of North Texas. He's like 1,600 yards. He ended up going to Tampa Bay. Um,
Oh,
I keep on thinking Jaden Daniels, but that's the Washington guy.
yeah, I can't think of his name.
Yeah, but he was getting like 1,600 yards, and he was the electric returner. But yeah, he just didn't pan out in the NFL. I don't even know if he's in the league anymore, but hopefully he
Yeah.
is.
And another thing, and I just got done mentioning this too. Another thing I like this time of year, because this is where I'm in a this time of year is I'm finishing up like what my plans are for the draft, who I'm going to write articles about, what type of article they're going to get, and all that. And I go through that, and I have a lot of things that go into it. I have certain statistical thresholds I have to make in order for me to even like spend time on them.
Hmm.
Because if I didn't, I mean, I watch over 500 players as it is, and I get knowledge on about 1,000 of them, and if I didn't have some kind of thing, I'd be watching thousands of players,
Yeah,
spending hundreds of hours. So I got to do something for it. And it's always funny to see these guys who used to get hype like a year or two ago that are like, okay, they no longer meet my statistical thresholds or this threshold that I have for whatever. And like didn't play enough games, and not because of injury or whatever it is, and get crossed off. And I was going through with quarterbacks today, and KJ Jefferson was a guy getting a lot of hype last year out of Arkansas. He went to UCF. He ended
hmm.
up not making it. Um, DJU, the former big recruit for Clemson,
Oh,
that
okay, yeah,
he's a guy who I'm not spending time on because he didn't meet the thresholds needed for it. It's always fun to see these previously hyped guys that are just not going to get watched now because of certain thresholds that I have.
yeah. Some of them are even going back to
Mhm.
college, and it's really nice they got the NIL, so they don't have to like I don't know get scared if they don't go to the NFL now. They can miss out on all that money, so Like Beck over at Georgia. I think he's gonna transfer to Miami is the word.
Mhm.
And at first, he was the number one quarterback. They had him over Shadur. They had him over Cam Ward. His season didn't go as planned. He didn't even finish the. He didn't even play the Bulls. I think he had to deal with an injury, whatever. Um, but yeah, it's nice to see he can go back. I really like when they go back an extra year. Like Joe Burrow, I remember before he got drafted, the year before he was like projected like a fourth
Mhm.
or a fifth rounder, and then he became the first overall, and now he's
Yeah.
just legit. So um, I think that's the one silver lining people don't really talk about with this NIL stuff is that players can stay longer, they can develop more. They're not forced to run to the NFL to take care of their family because their family in dire financial
Yeah.
need. Um, and I think in the long run, it should give you a better product in the NFL. But we'll see how it pans out. It doesn't mean just because it should doesn't mean it will. So
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a big fan of the NIL. I've always been for it, and it just cracks me up seeing all these multi-millionaire college coaches sit there and complain now because they don't know how to work the NIL.
mhm.
Well, shut up and figure it out. like,
I thought
like it's
they had plenty of practice when they were paying players under the table. Like,
like just figure it out. So what? You have more competition for it. I mean, you're just now going to show your recruitment chops, and everything's supposed to be above table,
mhm.
which there are still some things that go underneath it, but it's rough to watch, but we have Michael Ronquillo coming in, who's coming in with, the big news of the day that kind of affects the
Oh
Broncos.
yeah,
Las Vegas Raiders hiring Pete Carroll as their new head coach, 3 Super Bowl championship coaches in the AFC West division, and another one who made it and lost in an NCAA championship under his
oh
belt.
yeah.
So it is an extremely talented coaching group, and it's going to be interesting to see what Pete Carroll and Spy Tech does. And can I just say, I find it funny that Tom Brady, co-owner of the Raiders, had to hire a general manager with the name Spy Tech. Um, but yeah, I'm curious to see what they're going to do. Biggest issue for them, they got to find a quarterback, and there's already a lot of talk because of the connection with Spy
hmm
Tech and Tampa Bay of Jameis Winston being their quarterback, which I wouldn't mind one bit.
They're also talking about Russ. They're on
Yeah.
104.3 because they were saying that him and Pete Carroll have like mended their falling out, and so
Mm.
that he might come back. I don't. I think that's pretty far fetched. It's really hard to get people to come back like that. Um,
Everything. Sorry,
no,
everything I've seen is that the Steelers have been talking with Wilson's reps about about a long-term deal. So,
okay. Oh, yeah, long term or mediocrity. I guess I don't
but
know. You got to bring
nothing's
somebody in the third or
official,
fourth round.
and nothing's official till it's signed. Just ask the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with what happened with Liam Cohen. He was supposed to be on his way to sign his contract extension, making him the highest paid coordinator, and he dips out on that to go to Jacksonville to become their head coach. So,
Or Emmanuel Sanders. He was supposed to be a Kansas
yeah,
City Chief, and then
yeah,
yeah, last second he found Peyton Manning was coming to the Broncos. Like deuces, I'm going to play with Manning.
yeah. And this is Chase Woolner makes a good point. He doesn't scare me, but he can definitely offer some stability, which they need.
Yes, that's a great
Yes,
point.
stability and discipline.
Mhm.
Like,
And he seems like a player's coach, so like maybe that'll kind of change around the locker room culture as well.
yeah,
Because it's always nice to if you like going to your job, whatever, or you don't really mind it as much, whatever. Yeah, you're gonna put that much more effort into it instead of just trying to get out of the door as soon as possible.
yeah.
All right. So we're gonna talk about a quick episode breakdown, and the episode is in the title. We're gonna talk about the Shrine Bowl and some of the players that we should be looking at on those rosters. We got a couple of Broncos coaches involved in that as well. Um, After that, we got the players and coaches that are up for awards. Uh, Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. And then as Michael was talking about earlier, Pete Carroll joining the AFC West makes us a bunch most successful division and also makes us the oldest division as coaches. They don't look like us, like a lot of the coaches where they're like in their 30s or early 40s. These guys are all in their 70s, except for Harbaugh, right? Or I don't know. How old is Payne? I don't even know. They're in
Sean,
their 60s at least, right? So,
yeah, I think Sean Payton's like 60 in his early 60s. I
oh,
think
okay.
61. Yeah,
Oh, well, he's pretty younger than I thought. And then Cortland Sutton has one more year on his contract. Mike Kliss was talking about it on 104.3, saying it could take a $25 million annual contract to keep him here. I don't know about that. That's a lot of money. And then next are all the mock players to the Broncos. Who will make the most instant impact, and who's going to make the most long-term impact of all of them? Available running backs that aren't named Genty. Inside linebackers who should target in the draft. What tight ends to go after if the favorites are gone? And then something I heard from Champ Bailey when I was searching the internet about his little complacency is a disease motto, and how you show up every day like you're a rookie because you're expendable no matter who you are. So that would be the last thing of the thing, and plus a little fun news around about the NFL. So when we start with the Shrine Bowl,
well, we have a super chat real quick from Cody W saying, "What are we doing at Major League Baseball? What guys would you go after in free agency, or guys we should look at in the draft?" I would not be really looking at the draft for a linebacker. I'm not a big fan of this class. Go sign a guy. I saw before we went live, the chat was talking about Dre Greenlaw. He's working his way back from an Achilles tear. He's like 26 or 27 years old. You can sign him on a 1 year and we'll see kind of deal. See if he can come back from that. He's a good cover guy when he's healthy, but he got, tore his ACL in the championship game 2 years ago, I think it was, or the Super Bowl, whatever it was. And so he's a guy, I think that, Bolton of the Chiefs, and I think Zach Bond of the Eagles, I think they're going to be a little bit out of the Broncos price range. There's a lot of talk that both of them are going to secure $10+ million contracts.
Oh, okay.
And I wouldn't go that way for either of them in the first place. Ernest Jones, even though he's been traded, he was traded from the Rams to the Titans and to the Seahawks. He had a good season. He's a guy that can make a lot of sense. So there's definitely some options in free agency that are worth looking at, more so than the draft. And then we have Mark Rue coming in with a $2 donation from Canada. What do you think about Mason Graham? Go Broncos. I'm a big fan of Mason Graham. He's going to be long gone before 20, though.
I've seen in mock drafts he's starting to slide, and I don't know why he's sliding. I've seen him slide as low as like 16, and I'm like, I always thought he was like a 7 to 12, I guess, maybe. I don't know. He was pretty high up there.
I could see him slipping out of the top 10. I would be a little surprised with that. I don't think he gets, out of the top 15, though. But, hey, we do have a long period to go. We have the combine. We have, there's a chance for issues to rise up, injury issues to rise up. There's always some of that every single year. Maybe we can have a guy do what Reuben Foster did and try to fight the medical staff at the NFL combine that the year he was there. Or, who was it? Laramie Tunsil, the guy who had the video of
gas mask.
The gas mask.
I think that was
what can happen.
That was like his mom's ex-boyfriend that released that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to be part of the team, and he got in a fight with the mom, and then he wasn't part of the team no more, and that's when he released that. I know, man. We don't really have what we had that year that we got Chubb, where we weren't supposed to get him at all, and then he fell to us. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for us. But that was we're just not high enough. We need to be like 13 or 12, whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, there's always a chance of trading up. Sean Payton likes to do in the first round. I don't think he'd do it for a defensive lineman, though. I think if he's going to trade up, maybe wide receiver, maybe another pass rusher. Even though they just signed, Benito to the extension, or they have Benito coming up on an extension, and Cooper signed to his extension. So you never know. It's always an option. But I'm a big fan of his. He's my favorite defensive lineman in this class. And speaking of defensive linemen, and real quick, Mark, we need to get younger on the defensive line. Not only that, all the key players are either free agents this year, like DJ Jones, or next year with Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, Malcolm Roach, and even Matt Henningsen, if you want to throw him in. Jordan Jackson. He's a restricted free agent, I think, or an exclusive rights free agent. So you still have some cost control with him, and you definitely can upgrade over Jackson when you can. And speaking of DJ Jones here, Todd Ossendorf says maybe Javon Kinlaw could replace DJ Jones. Different types of defensive linemen.
He's like more of a slender build, right?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, he's not as big as, yeah. We get Zach Allen. We need him. DJ Jones. It'd be nice to keep him around, but I wouldn't be too sad if he lost him, whatever. But just Zach Allen, Benito, Cooper. Those are the guys we need to keep around.
Yeah.
And Cooper's already been signed, so
And Todd at 6'5", 319 for Javon Kinlaw. Sounds like the doctor ordered to me. He is that
mm,
big, but it's how he carries his weight and the style of play. He is a gap shooter, not a guy that you want plugging gaps like DJ Jones.
okay.
Very different types.
Um, and then let's see what do we have after that? Okay. Um, so we got the players and coaches awards. So I think they probably went over this earlier in the week, but you got Sean Payton for Coach of the Year. You got Patrick Surtain as Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and then Bo Nix is the Rookie of the Year. Of all three, PS2's definitely got the best chance to win, followed by maybe Sean Payton, and Jaden Daniels just pulled away.
Yeah.
Even though Bo Nix had an incredible season, Jaden Daniels looks like he's been in the league like 6 years already. He doesn't have those. Bo Nix has these huge. I mean, he has these great like drives, and then he has nothing, and then he has a great drive, and then because he's just still learning. He's a rookie, so like
Yeah.
he's not going to be great right away. And Jaden Daniels doesn't seem like he has that.
He had a downward slip there after he got hurt earlier in the
Yeah, the
season.
ribs. Yeah.
It got his ribs. He started to have a downward slope, but he bounced back from that and ended up having a great close to it. And at the time they vote, Bo Nix was kind of having a little bit of slump, and Daniels was rising. So I do think that Daniels pulled away from it, and I think that, and it's the same kind of thing with Sean Payton. I think had he, beat the Chargers, because I think that's about the time
Hmm.
they vote, the Chargers Bengals game. I think had they beat those games and secured the playoff spot earlier instead of in the finale, um, I think he would have a better chance, but
Hmm.
I have a hard time seeing it not go to, I think, Dan Campbell, like,
Yeah,
for it.
that's sad how their season ended.
Yeah. 22. Okay, on defense, you have your 11 starters and then you have your 11 primary backups. 13 of the 22 either entered the game hurt and missing the game or got hurt during the game. They had just
Oh.
9 of their one of their top 2 guys of the 11 spots on defense. That defense just took a beating all season long, and they
Hmm.
took a beating in that game. They lost what their key players, a lot of the key players in the game. Amik Robinson, I believe he went down in the game and he changed it. He was able what made their secondary work with
Hmm.
what he was able to bring to it. And then Brian Branch, I think, if I remember right, he got banged up in it. It's just it was just a tough game to watch with the injuries that were coming on.
Definitely, that was a yeah. That's It's so hard to get to the Super Bowl. You
Hmm.
can have a great team, and then like stuff happens. The quarterback gets hurt, players get traded, players I don't know, hold out or whatever, and then you can be not be there again for 25 years.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I know I feel for those guys. So I guess I'll kind of root for I'll root for the Buffalo fans, not the team. Um, After that, yeah, we were talking about earlier. Pete Carroll joining AFC West. Um, as another Super Bowl winning quarterback or coach to the group. Should have had 2 Super Bowls if they would have just ran the ball. But but yeah, it's really nice to see our division with good coaches uh, becoming super respectable outside of KC, where all the teams have. You got a game plan for all the teams. It's not just an easy win on all of our teams. I know the Raiders still don't have a quarterback, but I think they're going to find a gap quarterback and then work on drafting somebody that to sit behind him. What do you think about the Kirk Cousins? I know he's probably going to be gone, and then Atlanta's probably going to have to eat a lot of that contract, kind of like the rest deal.
Yeah, he's gonna be an interesting one to watch because he's definitely done in Atlanta, I think, and I'm just not sure with how bad he was. I'm not sure where he would go. Um, yeah, it's tough. I'm looking at it, and the guys who need a quarterback, clearly need a quarterback. They're in position to land quarterbacks in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see Las Vegas taking a shot. They could sit with the 6th overall pick. And it could be a situation where the top guys are kind of out of play for them, with Tennessee and the Giants and even Cleveland sitting as the first 3.
Mm-hmm.
I could see them making a play for Cousins. San Francisco, I think, could be a sneaky team for Cousins because
Okay.
even despite how good Purdy has been, he has a bad habit of kind of falling apart in the big moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe they could look at something, especially with him coming up on a contract extension. Um,
Yeah, the McCaffrey thing really hurt Purdy.
yeah, it's it's really tough to find a place for it because a lot of teams either have their quarterback or
Mm-hmm.
are working with a young rookie quarterback that they want to, keep developing, or they just gave a big contract to a not so good quarterback and are kind of stuck for
Yeah,
the time being.
Ryan Tannehill. um, yeah, that's a rough one when you just feel like you can't get out of it, like how we were with Russ, and we just had to eat all that money, and that was one of the most brutal things to have to do. That's so much money. To get so
Mhm.
lucky to get a quarterback that's cost controlled to be able to build a team around him uh, was vital for us to be getting back on our feet again. If we didn't have a quarterback, it didn't matter who the rest of our team was.
Yeah.
Um, and then we'd sell a mediocre quarterback most likely at a still an expensive price.
And speaking of teams needing quarterback, and with the topic being Shrine Bowl, today there was a big deal made because Shrine Bowl that's starting, meetings are starting, practices start tomorrow, I believe,
Okay.
um, and go through the 28th with the game next Saturday. And Tennessee Titans were bringing in Shador Sanders in for his meeting. They hold the first overall pick, and there was a first overall pick meeting with one of the guys viewed as one of the top 2 quarterbacks in this draft. It's big news, and I would not be surprised if the Titans go with Sanders or Cam Ward out of Miami.
And also they got to do their due diligence. They got
Mhm,
to be like, maybe we're not sold on him, but let's see what he is and how he is in front of us, how he can break down plays, his composure is, what kind of
mhm.
character he has, and maybe he can win him over. Um, do you think they're already made up their mind on who they're going to pick?
No.
No. Okay.
Not with the way this quarterback class. I mean, if this was a class that had like even though he had a rough year, if it had like a Caleb Williams,
Mm-hmm.
even though the quarterback class was so strong, the discussion was always there's Caleb Williams and then there's the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And then, same thing with years ago. There's been a bit of revisionist here, but it was Andrew Luck and then RG3. The
Yeah.
Colts knew who they were taking right from the start. There was no um, going away from that. And there's multiple other years where you have the same kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
This is a year where no one is really sure who's the number one quarterback is right now, and because there's not a clear cut guy, and different teams are going to have a different guy at that number one spot. So
Yeah.
I don't think they have any idea. I think they're still in the process of figuring that out, and they're using every available moment they can with Shador Sanders to do so. And Shrine Bowl, that's one of those moments.
Yeah. And speaking of the Shrine Bowl, let's see on the East team, they got Denver Broncos, Addison Lynch, the defensive back coach. He's going to be there. And Corey Jones, our strength and conditioning coach, are one of our strength and conditioning coaches. So that's 2 of the Broncos. On the west side, I don't think there's any Broncos. Um,
No.
but those are the 2 that are on the east side. As for players, everybody knows I'm a big CU guy. So we have Shedeur Sanders with Travis Hunter, Jonte Webster, Jimmy Horn, and Will Shepherd, maybe.
Travis Hunter's not at the Shrine Bowl,
Oh, okay.
but
Oh, yeah, because he's not a senior, right?
yeah, or he's not at the Shrine Bowl. Jimmy Horn, Will Shepherd, and LaJohntay Wester are the 3 wide receivers there. They have a I believe Shiloh Sanders is there as one of the
Oh yeah, he
safeties.
is. Yeah,
And I feel like I remember writing down another Colorado guy.
I was looking at him earlier, and I think he's.
Oh no, it was the Colorado School of Mines long snapper. I was like, I know I wrote
Oh, okay.
Colorado down somewhere for another one, but yeah, it's just those guys for Colorado.
Oh, Cameron
But
Simon Craig too. Cameron Simon Craig is he's our safety for CU. He's gonna be there as well. I just see his name right now.
oh, I did
Yeah,
not see that one.
he's better than
Um,
Trello actually.
yeah, I did a article on looking at the Shrine rosters, giving a quick breakdown of some of the guys and who to look at, and the safety room's not great.
Hmm.
From right now, Shiloh Sanders is the one that is the highest graded from the consensus board. Since I don't have my own board up at the moment, that's still a couple months away. Shiloh Sanders is the highest rated on the consensus board, if I remember right, and he's like rated just outside of the top out of the top 250. It's like 255, I think.
Oh, okay.
So this is not a great
He'll,
safety class overall. There are some options at the top that aren't at the Shrine Bowl. And then one thing too with the Shrine Bowl is you always got to look at for some of these smaller school guys and who steps up, especially on the offensive line.
Quinn Miners.
That was Senior Bowl, but I
Oh,
mean,
sorry.
uh, the
Especially on
guy that went to Strange, the guy who went to New England, he started off at the Shrine Bowl, um, and then if I remember right, Latani Moody had a big week at the Shrine Bowl, if I remember right on
Oh,
him.
okay.
Even though that wasn't as small of a school, but there are always small school guys that pop up on here. And there is a guy from Minnesota Duluth who I'm going to shout out, especially Aiden Williams, because he's an Alaskan.
Oh, nice.
We have Marcus Wurr out of Montana State, who I've heard a lot of good things about as a day 3 option to develop on the interior. Thomas Perry out of Middlebury. You've got Gareth Warren out of Lindenwood, also a guy that I've heard a lot of good things about. So there are some options here. Nash Jones is another one. He's a big dude that I've heard a lot of stuff about as these guys that could really help themselves during this week of practice.
Okay. Nash Jones. Is it you said was he offensive line, you said?
Yeah, he's the offensive line. I think he's like 6'8".
That's how big I am. Nah, I'm 6'2".
Oh, he's listed at 6'5".
How tall are
He
you?
looks 6 foot flat.
You're 6'5"?
6 foot flat.
Oh, 6 foot flat. It's
6 foot
crazy
one on
how
some days.
when you're used to being taller than everybody and you actually see somebody taller than you, it's like then you can get this perspective of everybody else when they see you. Yeah, the 6'8" guys it's insane. I don't even understand how they're people. they're like a Game of Thrones characters or something. They're so big. Is there any other players that you're looking at from the Shrine that you think the Broncos should key in on, maybe like a mid to later rounds? Or
Well, I know when you were going through the rundown, you mentioned something about tight ends that the top guys aren't available.
oh yeah,
And Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland, those are the top 2 guys. I prefer Loveland over Warren,
mm-hmm.
even though that is not the popular pick with Broncos country. Broncos country is all about Tyler Warren. Real quick, Tyler Warren to me he doesn't bring enough oomph as a receiver outside of being schemed, which happened a lot at Penn State. A lot of those big plays were schemed. And then as a blocker, he's very hit or miss. He'll either have this great block or completely whiff. Colson Loveland brings a little bit more stability and does
Mm-hmm.
offer a little bit more creativity and ability as a receiver without having to be schemed. But after those guys, one of my favorite guys, and probably my favorite guy for the Broncos, is Oronde Gadsden II out of Syracuse.
Okay.
This is a move tight end who, there's going to be comparisons about Greg Dulcich because he was a move tight end, offered up a lot as a receiver. But Oronde Gadsden, I think Gadsden has a lot more to work with as a blocker and has shown a lot more as a blocker now coming into the draft than Greg Dulcich did coming into the draft. And Greg
Okay.
Dulcich never really showed a whole lot of improvement. So Oronde Gadsden is a guy I like a lot. I saw improvement with his blocking from the beginning of the season towards the end of the season. When I was watching over some games of him, he is a guy I am a big fan of for the Broncos.
Michael has one of my names on here. Was Gunnar Helm from Texas. The one that would people are kind of really high on that maybe more of a receiver type is a Harold Fannin Jr. at a Bowling Green. That was another thing, was a Bowling Green thing as well, the competition wise. But they say that 104.3, they're super excited about him. I think it was Stokely was all about him.
He's very fun to watch, but he is definitely, if you want to look at a Greg Dulcich type, that is him. He
Oh,
really
okay.
doesn't offer much as a blocker. Which for me, you got to be able to block at least a little bit as a tight end, even as a move tight end.
Yeah, me personally, I would just take somebody who just blocked and then
And
just
yeah,
got a 5 yard catch 10 times
you
a
know
year.
that kind of safety outlet type safety
Yeah.
net. But yeah, Fandon Jr., the Bowling Green kid, he is very much, that move tight end who can be a big slot, and that's basically what you would be drafting him to be.
Okay.
And I think as a blocker, you might be able to develop him enough to, handle some of those, defensive backs as a blocker, but you would not be able to put him in line, I don't think. He just does not have the size or strength for it.
Okay. The last guy was a Moliki Matavo over out of UCLA. I
I'm not familiar with him, so
I think I don't know. He had him on the. I should have wrote down his stats. He's pretty high up on some of the draft boards for the tight ends. He might have been like top 7 or something like that, tight ends.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've been ever since Noah Fant. We've been so obsessed with getting this like hybrid type of tight end that can really stretch the field, and blocking has almost become like a second thing that on the
Mhm.
list of what you want. And I think it should be the first thing on the list. I think a guy that's got good solid hands and then is a really good blocker. Because then if you yeah, you just need like 10 first downs out of him in a year or something like that. And then you needed a block for him to help protect Bo, help with that run. And that's how our team gets better. I don't It's not going to be because our tight end's getting 10 touchdowns. I don't know. We're just not at that level right now. And I don't think there's a tight end out there that can really do
Well,
that for us.
the big thing with tight end and getting more receiving out of it is that is a big part of Sean Payton's offense. I mean, going through the years, he's always had that reliable tight end. When he was with New York before he was the head coach, Jeremy Shockey.
Yeah, I remember
He goes
Shockey. Yeah.
he goes to Dallas, Jason Witten, Jimmy Graham.
Didn't Shockey
And then
follow him to the Saints too?
yeah, Shockey was there for the Saints for a little while. And
Jimmy
then
Graham. You said Jimmy Graham and then
Jimmy Graham, and there was another dude who used to be with the Patriots too. Um,
Ben Coates.
no, Benjamin Watson.
Oh, yeah, the guy that laid out the champ.
Yeah. Um, so he's always had these receiving tight ends, and you need that, and you do need a blocker as well. Like, so how I look at a tight end room is you need your move tight end guy, which is your primarily used as a receiver, can be a big slot or work as a receiver out of inline, doing a little bit of chip work. Still has to be good enough as a blocker. You have to have a primary blocker tight end who is this guy that you trust explicitly to block on the edge. And then you have to have this guy who is that safety outlet, that guy that can get you 5 to 10 yards, reliable in the clutch when needed, and also be reliable enough as a blocker. So you need all three of those. And when I look at this tight end room, you have Nate Atkins, who I think has really come along as a blocker, and he's the primary blocking guy. And I
Mhm.
think at worst he can be this reliable, outlet for it, because that's kind of what he grew to be towards the end of the season. Adam Trotman can also somewhat fill that role, though he's been a major disappointment as a blocker. So the one thing when I look at this tight end room that they need that move tight end guy more than the blocking, but they do need to upgrade the blocking as well, because it was atrocious this year.
Remember we were talking about Alex Hooper at one point? Is that somebody you can put as a stopgap, I guess, until you find the guys, I guess? I don't know. Because I feel like he'd be cheap, and that's somebody it reminds me like of an Owen Daniels, and he played pretty well with this. He blocked good enough, and then he got open. Peyton Manning, he really loved using
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's always those guys like that you can always use and everything. And the Broncos, they just have a lot of work to do, in my opinion, on the tight end room.
Hmm.
And this is a good tight end class. The UCLA guy that you mentioned, he is on my scouting list. I just haven't had a chance to get to him yet. I went through and I got through a couple other guys that are on it. Ben Yorosek of Georgia, he's at the Shrine Bowl. Luke Lachey out of Iowa, he's at the Shrine Bowl. Those are two other guys that if you want, day 3 guys who can come in and compete and for different roles, yeah, sure, you can look their way.
It's yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we can get that figured out. That'd be nice to, because we have like 3 or 4 positions that really need to get figured out because they're seriously lacking. And the next one
And
was oh sorry, Juwan Johnson.
yeah, Cody W came in with a super chat right when I was clicking on that. What about Juwan Johnson, or did he get a contract? Word is that he is looking to come to Denver to follow Sean Payton, and just kind of wants out of the mess that is New Orleans right now. Obviously, we'll see. A lot of time between now and then. Saints can come in and make him a big offer, but he is definitely a veteran tight end to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I would love to have him. He's like, nah, he's one of those guys that doesn't get the Pro Bowl nods, but he gets so much respect around the league, amongst
He does
coaches
his
and
job.
former
He's
players.
reliable. Just
Yeah, because
does his
I've
job
never heard
consistently.
anything bad about him. They're always
Yep.
like, yeah, he's a solid tight end.
Yep.
And then for the inside linebackers, you're talking about how you would prefer to go with free agency. I just had 3 names. You got Barrett Carter out of Clemson, Landon Barton out of Utah, and then Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame. Um, and this is, I mean, I'm just picking a couple of people off the list.
Yeah.
They seem like they had pretty decent stats, whatever. I need to watch some more, but I don't
So
know. What
the
made you laugh?
Landon Barton. So in the group chat, I made a tweet last night. It's like whenever I see somebody mention Landon Barton, and I did that whole or I sent the gif of Stewie with his legs crossed and they're like super scared,
Yeah. He's
just
all
because of
traumatized.
PTSD from the Barton name, because he's Cody Barton's younger brother.
Oh, is he?
And yeah,
Oh, wow.
he's part of the whole Barton clan that went to Utah, and Cody Barton did not have a great year despite fan appearances or fan belief because of the big plays that he
He had
did
some
make.
splash plays, yeah.
But he was so bad, and Landon Barton is, I mean,
But he took his job.
obviously obviously he would be a rookie. He's in the NFL. I'm not judging him based off of the relation to Cody Barton. But when I watch him, I see a lot of the same issues that I have with Cody Barton and had with Cody Barton coming out of college. That said, I was a big fan of Cody Barton coming out of college. I
Mhm.
think there was a lot to work with, and I think there is stuff to work with Landon Barton as well. I'm just not sure. I've heard a lot of, late round 3, early round 4. Obviously, my big board, as I said, it's not set yet. That might right now, that feels a little early to me. Combine testing, that can change things there as well. But right now, I'd be looking at him as a late day 3 guy.
Yeah, it's I don't know, when I see Cody Barton too, when I first saw him, he reminded me of Brian Cushing.
Mhm.
Uh, they kind of had the same type of
Yeah,
build, whatever. They just
I can
look
see
like
that.
linebackers. They look like a linebacker in a movie. Just the way they're built. Um, well, what about the free agency? You said they're Dre Greenlaw. They were talking about in the chat. Um, but I don't know who. Do you know any other ones that are available, or if you
Um,
on that one?
yeah, give me a second and I can pull that up. Um, here.
But yeah,
I know
yeah,
we have
Cody.
a
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I would say, yeah, Cody Barton. Yeah, he had the splash plays. Uh, but he talked about the one play that really pissed him off in the splash play. It was before that when he dropped the interception.
Mhm.
Um, it just seems like he's maxed out. He's at his ceiling right now.
Yeah,
And it's something that we just need more of. We need. That's just not gonna. I mean, he could be a good rotational guy or special teams, but yeah, he can't be your starting inside backer.
yeah. Um, I saw something in chat and I was just kind of looking through seeing if we had some news. But Phil McLaughlin coming in saying, what exactly did Darren Moogie do that got him a general manager job? Hopefully I'm saying the name right. He is the assistant general manager to George Payton, who, unless I missed it, is only expected at the moment to be the next general manager of the New York Jets. And it's always tough because you hear front office hirings, and it's always assistant general manager or director of scouting. He does a lot. It's a lot of behind the scenes. George Paton gets a lot of credit for it, and Moogie does a lot. He's a sounding board. He has his hand in everything of scouting, free agency, pro scouting, contracts. So that's kind of what makes him attractive. He's very well respected around the league, which is always a good thing to have. You always want somebody to be a general manager who is respected not only around the league but by agents. Somebody asked,
yeah.
and comp picks if he's hired. Unfortunately, no. That would not happen. So it still would be I think it'd be a good hire by the Jets. Spytek went to the Raiders. They just officially announced him. John Spytek, I think, from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That's funny what you said earlier. Tom Brady and Spytek.
Of course. Like it's fitting. It's a fitting pairing.
It is. And then for our last position, I guess would be running back. And this is me a list of running backs not named GT. So you got of course, Nick's favorite player, Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. 1,500-yard season, 21 touchdowns. He's projected a second-round pick. Then you got Amorion Hampton, 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns. Dylan Sampson, 22 rushing touchdowns out of Bowling Green. He's projected to be a third-round pick. And then I had another one in Nicholas Singleton, 9 rushing touchdowns, 5 receiving touchdowns, a third-round pick out of Penn State. He seems like he's more of like a dual threat kind of guy.
Who was that out of Penn State?
Nicholas Singleton.
He went back. He returned.
And deleted.
Yeah, Penn State had a pair of running backs that have me disappointed. I know Nick is disappointed. Has a lot of people disappointed that both of them decided to return.
Yes, because they're getting paid too. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they want that first round pick. They're waiting for their first round grade, I guess. I don't know.
Although with running backs, it's typically you go back for a year and you fall down for running backs. That's a pretty big trend there.
The quarterbacks, that happens a lot too. I feel so bad for those quarterbacks. They go from first round to fifth rounders.
Yeah.
What else was it? Yeah, so I don't know. Out of all of them, I was gonna say him because I like a dual threat. I like somebody who offers just more than the first 2 downs.
Yeah.
Maybe Caleb Johnson, 21 touchdowns. That's insane.
Yeah, he's good. I really like him. He's one of my favorite backs. My favorite back though is Travion Henderson out of Ohio State.
Oh yeah,
some injury concerns there, but this dude can block. This dude runs well. He runs in a power gap scheme extremely well with the vision, contact balance, everything you look for in it. He can catch out of the backfield. He does well to help set up screens with what he has. Good vision. Yeah, he is my running back draft crush for the Broncos is Travion Henderson.
What round would you take him in?
I would take him in the second.
Second?
If the medicals check out. Obviously, anytime you talk medical history, it always depends on how the medical checks go at the combine. That's always such a big thing for them. Without knowing that information, though, I would take the second. If it comes back poorly, that obviously would change things.
Okay. Which, man, thinking about medical stuff is keep thinking about Javonte. He was so. I remember when we traded up for him, and everybody was so excited. And I kind of didn't know who he was a little bit, but then I saw him, and they talked about his linebacker and how he just ran angry. And his first year was impressive. He just looked like a Marion Barber type of guy when Marion Barber had his height.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sad to see that they most likely will move on from him. Hopefully his career isn't over. Hopefully he can stick around on the team for a couple of years. I know I always hope for people to get that. I think he's already got it. I think he had to get 3 years to get the pension. 3 or 5 years. I just like those guys to make that limit at least, so that they're taken care of when they're getting older.
And I'm going to switch over to the chat here because we have somebody talking about one of my favorite wide receivers. What do you guys think of Egbuka, Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State? This dude is a blocker. He is one of the better blockers in this class. Not as good as the guy out of Stanford, who I absolutely love for him. He's a really good route runner. He runs dig routes extremely well, which is what the Broncos could use. I see Todd Ossendorf saying he's another Sims. No, Egbuka is about 6'1", 6'2", and a little over 200 pounds. So they are not the same. Egbuka, he's one of my favorite wide receivers in this class. Probably going to go round 1. I am not sure I would take him round 1, or I would not sure I would take wide receiver round 1. But yeah, I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah, I did see. I was actually going to put him on my list, and then I couldn't say his name, and then I was like, I'm out here. But yeah,
this is a kid who blocks his butt off and is the best blocker.
Yeah. Is this the guy that beat Travis Hunter that last year, like over and over?
Like had like over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against him.
It was crazy, and then he made that amazing catch behind his back, behind Travis Hunter's back.
Yeah, and that is a game that's going to stand out because Travis Hunter is, so highly coveted, so highly rated. And when you evaluate guys, you always look and see always level of competition. Who are they playing against? And he's playing against, has that kind of a game. Granted, it was 2 seasons ago now. It was still against a guy who many expect to be a top 5 pick in this class.
I think he's a better corner than he's a receiver too. So
I think he has a brighter future at corner than receiver, but I think he'll make more money at wide receiver than corner.
Oh yeah, I think he's a more natural cornerback, but he can develop into one of the premier receivers just because his athletic gifts and how he uses his knowledge of cornerback to work with his leverage and routes and stuff like that, and to know what the receivers are doing before the receivers do it. So
yeah,
he's a student of the game. That he's always in the film room and he's always in recovery.
Yeah.
And then so the big names that we were talking about with the Gene T, the Warren, Loveland, a couple other dudes. What player of that group, or maybe another couple of players, has the most immediate impact, and which player has the most long-term impact, do you think?
Oh, that's always tough because
if they play to their expectations, I guess.
Especially at running back because, injuries are so common at running back because they just take a beating. And then, talking about Javonte Williams and how his injury derailed that. You can never say, it's so hard to talk about long-term impact, but immediate impact, any one of them really, they just have to go to the right team. All these guys, running backs, are ready-made. It's the easiest position to transition from NFL or from college to the NFL. And it just depends on the team. Does Caleb Johnson go to a team that uses a West Coast style offense? Then if so, he can be the best rookie running back out of this class. Does Gene T go to the right team that uses him properly, in this gap power scheme? Then he could be. So it's very tough to say best short term and best.
Okay.
So yeah, but best fit, I guess is what.
Yeah. Who of those running backs? Who has the best vision? Do you think of maybe Sampson, Hampton, Gene T? No, I guess we can throw Scatterbo in there if you want.
Out of those guys, probably Hampton.
Yeah.
Gene T doesn't have bad vision, but he doesn't have great vision. He just has tremendous contact balance and enough power to break through tackles and stay on his feet. But there are runs. Well, he will leave yards on the field because he misses the hole. But Hampton, he's quick and agile and sees things as they're opening or before they open. Yeah, I would probably say him out of those 3.
I like the contact balance one with Gene T because that reminds me of Terrell Davis. So one of the big things I loved about him is his rule was never let the first guy bring you down, and it seemed like he would just bounce off kind of people, whatever, and then just break runs and stuff like that. He was really hard to bring down. Maybe that's why his body was kind of wore out, whatever. But I actually just saw something recently on him and it says something about like y'all must have forgot or something, and it shows Terrell Davis playing. And I don't know. I don't think people realize. I mean, we do as Bronco fans. I don't think the rest of the NFL realizes how special he was, like the fans wise, because he had these new up and coming running backs every year that have these huge seasons, and then they go back to like the APs and stuff like that and the Barry Sanders, but they kind of completely gloss over Terrell Davis, and it's just like you have no idea how good this guy. He ran 2,000 yards and he set out 8 quarters, I think, that year, 8 fourth quarters. It was my brother's telling me. I have to double check on that, but it was like a ton of fourth quarters. He could have got like 2,400 yards, and then to average 140 yards in the playoffs, and then have 157 yards and 3 touchdowns and miss the entire second quarter in the Super Bowl is insane. So I don't know. I just don't see those other guys on his level yet. And when people say that they are, I just 100% don't agree. I think APs are on his level, stuff like that, whatever. But some of these newer guys, I'm just not as. They're amazing. They're just not Terrell Davis.
Yeah.
All right, and then I guess the last thing would be something I heard about in an interview with Champ Bailey, talking about how he became who he is and how he maintained his greatness. And he talked about complacency as a disease. Champ Bailey said in an interview, "You can't get complacent with anything. When you're on the top, you always got to expect. You always got to think you're expendable, and you got to treat every day like you're a rookie. And the work builds the confidence. So that's what this team's motto should be this offseason. Don't take anything for granted. I know we were overachieved, but you cannot sit back. You have to continue to grind because it's way easier to fall back than it is to go forward. And this team really needs to continue to lock in, get better, and continue to surround Bo with weapons and just make it a better, more solidified team."
Yeah, I mean, historically, teams that, exceed expectations to the level the Broncos did, typically have a regression the year after. Happens time and time again, but you also have to sit there and be aware of the fact that when teams do become competitive, they do have to start somewhere. And it starts by exceeding expectations and then building forward with that. And so I'm with you. That does need to be the Broncos motto this year so they don't fall into, what happens so often in the NFL and sit there and establish themselves of we are legit this year or last season. We didn't exceed expectations. That is who we are. You just underestimated us. And they have a lot of the pieces to do it. They still need some more, but one of the biggest things they need is from Bo Nix to not fall into this stereotypical sophomore slump that we get from rookie quarterbacks and that we see so often. And that's the biggest thing. And how do they do that? They go and improve the weapons around him. They improve the running back position, find a running game to help take some of that pressure off of him, give him a legit number one receiver option, because I've talked about this before, and I know it gets a lot of flack for it. I don't think Cortland Sutton is a legit number one, a legit number one guy. I think he was just kind of forced into it, and he did well with it. But I think he is elite number two that needs a legit number one to kind of help feed off of and take pressure off of him and not make the passing offense so predictable. That receiving tight end, you just need these pieces to help take that pressure off Bo Nix so he can, go forward instead of taking that step back.
I actually recently wrote an article about that. It's pinned in my profile on X under at Kenneth _MHH about how to avoid a sophomore slump with Bo, about the weapons, fostering all about being improving yourself and getting better and never being settled for what you are right now and knowing that you can be better tomorrow. And there's a couple other things in there, but it turned out a good article. So go check that out under my my X page if you want to.
It was a good article. It's worth a read. So go check it out.
And then I guess so we didn't have any chats or any questions. We got a couple statements, whatever.
But we have Cody W coming in saying, tired of watching our running backs run into the backs of our offensive line. Me too, man. Me too. I don't know how many times I've said this year, and Javonte Williams runs into the back of Quinn Miners or Ben Powers or Garrett Bowles. I have no idea how many times I've said that this year, and I am so tired of it.
maybe his last name used to be Sanchez, and he's like related to Mark Sanchez or something. That's got to be the most embarrassing play of all time. That is the funniest thing ever. Yeah, I really don't. Yeah, it's brutal seeing your backs get hit in the backfield before they can get it going, and when they can't find the hole, and they run in, it ruins their momentum. They get it off of it, but then what could have been a 7-yard run turns into a 1-yard run.
Yeah.
I guess, and so we're running down to the very end. So if you guys have any more questions or any super chats, just throw them in the chat. There's some fun news around the league. There was a conversation with Manning and Elway, and they talked about why Manning came to Denver, and everybody talks about that and why he came here. But then he also talked about getting the number 18, and was it Frank Tripucka? It was the first Bronco quarterback, and he wore 18, and he unretired it for him. And yeah, they talked about like, hey, what if I wanted to wear 7? And Elway kind of laughed. And he was like, yeah, we would have gave it to you, bro. You would have had it. So that was kind of cool. I didn't really know what he was going to say when he said that, but that was a pretty neat story.
Here's a pretty good, interesting question. Going back to Pete Carroll and the outlook of the AFC West, do you think the hire of Pete Carroll balances the AFC West more for the future? Having to win more than 12 games to win the division is tough. I definitely think that we are going to see a even more competitive AFC West division this year. How competitive the Raiders are all stems on what they get out of their quarterback. I think they'll finally get a consistent run game going. And I think the defense is going to, find some consistency as well to help make them be more competitive, but it all revolves around the quarterback. And yeah, I mean, he signed I believe a 3-year deal with an option for a 4th, which doesn't surprise me at all. They didn't want a rookie general manager and a rookie head coach. So they got the rookie general manager, got a veteran head coach for a few years, and then, they can evaluate then and stick with Pete Carroll or go for a different way at head coach. But I think it's going to, again, I think it's just going to be more competitive in the AFC West this year. Okay. I think that until they're not, you have the Kansas City Chiefs who are at the top of the division. Mm-hmm. Until somebody takes that spot from them, they are at the top. I think you have the Broncos and the Chargers as pretty close, number 2 and 3. And then I think you have the Raiders. But I would not be surprised if everyone in the division wins at least 7 games this year.
Yeah, but also we can't get ahead of ourselves. Remember just a couple of years ago when we had the best quarterbacks of any division, like of all time or something like that? It was like we had Russ when we got picked up. Russ, they had Derek Carr, they had Herbert, they had Mahomes, and half those guys aren't even on their team anymore. So
yeah,
I think the coach makes a bigger difference, even though quarterback is a huge difference. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this season plays out for these guys. Hopefully they're all good, because that's when it's the best football. It's the best time to go to these games. And then I also looked at when I saw that Champ Bailey thing, his mentors. Do you know his mentors when he first got there were Deion Sanders and Darrell Green? Those are the cornerbacks there. You couldn't learn from anybody better. That's crazy. Yeah. And then I saw a video with Dexter McCluster talking to about a hit he took in a game. Former running back, receiver for the Chiefs. And Ed Reed hit him. And he gets hit. He sees Ed Reed coming. He's like, I'm going to get smashed. He's like, but I'm not dropping the ball. So he holds on to the ball. He gets lit up. He goes to the sideline. He's trying not for them to see it, read his lips. And he walks up to Andy Reid. He's like, hey, coach, I can't feel my chest. And they're like, you going to be okay? And he's like, yeah, I just need a second. But it was so funny. Like, he just got lit up by Ed Reed.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I had in here before we head out is, or if you want to say some stuff as well, is Marshall Faulk might be the CU Buffalo's running back coach. There's some stuff going on about that. I saw some different articles about that. So we'll see have to see how that plays out. But I mean, just because you're a really good running back doesn't mean you're gonna be a good running back coach. But I know it's going to inspire some kids at least a little bit just to be learning from a superstar or Hall of Famer like him. And
Yeah, I
that's it for
mean,
me on my side.
yeah. Real quick, just going over the Shrine Bowl roster a little bit. A couple guys to talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about
Oh,
here.
okay.
There is a corner, and I know corner is not a very big need on the Broncos. I mean, they seem to have, anyways, at least 4 deep. But Riley Moss, 2 years, missed time both years due to
Always
injury.
hurt.
So there's a guy out of LSU that if Vance Joseph wants to be more press man, Zy Alexander, this dude's press technique, it's not the best, but it is up there. He uses length extremely well. He's a guy that I would like to see brought in for, added competition, developmental depth. A guy that you can look at and be like, okay, we're going to keep you as a backup this year. Behind Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain, if one of them goes down, better than putting, Levi Wallace back out there. But he's a guy that really intrigues me this year. There is I can't remember what position it was. I'm trying to sit there and go through it real quick. There's a couple linebacker or a couple edge rushers, edge defenders, that are pretty interesting. There is Braden Swinson out of LSU, Tyler Barron, Miami, and then Fadil Diggs out of Syracuse. Barron and Diggs are both a little bit on the bigger side, 260 plus. They're not bad pass rushers, but they're a quality, well-rounded defender. They can get you some sacks. They can defend the run. Braden Swinson is a little bit more of a pass rusher than a run defender. Both of those guys are very intriguing. There's a pair of interior defensive linemen out of Maryland in this game that if you want to look for DJ Jones replacements, either one of them are JJ Pegues and Jordan Phillips. I like Jordan Phillips a little bit more. Nazir Stackhouse out of Georgia. He's another one of that body type, 320 plus pounds that actually can hold up against double teams, being at the center of the point of the attack, in the middle of the offensive line.
Like Vince Wilfork.
Yeah, kind of that type, kind of what that DJ Jones is, and not Javon Kinlaw. Todd, just to bring that back up. But Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, he is another, defensive lineman that I absolutely am a big fan of. But he's another guy that if he's there at 20, I would be very surprised. And overall, it's nice to see the Shrine Bowl roster get these first round talent rated guys that they have. Shadur Sanders, Kenneth Grant. There's another guy too at one of the positions that's viewed as a first rounder or borderline first rounder. It's nice to see them get these guys and just grow the game more, because I just like the way that they do the Shrine Bowl. I like how the drills they go through. They do a lot more in their drills than you get at the Senior Bowl. So you can get a little bit more of an idea about the guys and what they can do. So yeah,
Have you ever been to a Shrine Bowl?
No, unfortunately, I have not.
We have to do that one of these years. That'd be cool. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I keep wanting to get down to a Shrine Bowl and a Senior Bowl. Last year I was credentialed online, so I got access to all the practice tape and I could tune in live to watch it or watch it afterwards. Haven't seen a thing this year to get the same kind of access for it yet.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the Shrine Bowl. I like the Senior Bowl, but Shrine Bowl is my favorite game of all the 5 billion pre-draft all-star games that they have.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out this year, especially since there's some first-round talent in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my job.
And your guy should do standards.
Yeah, that's my boy.
But I think that's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we will probably be talking about the Senior Bowl because that's going to be getting started here soon. And then we get a break. We can focus in on free agency a little bit more. And then we have the combine coming up. It's draft season. Draft season goes by quickly. But before we get out of here, of course, there is our end of show stuff we have to run through. You can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at Kenneth_MHH or at Erick Trickel for myself. You can also find me on Blue Sky under the same handle, along with all the other stuff that they have on Blue Sky. You can also follow the Dev Valley Deep Divers podcast on Twitter at DVDD_pod. the Mile High Huddle Twitter or X account at Mile High Huddle, as well as at the MHH Pod. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And you can get all access to all the different socials. And then we also have Instagram at Mile High Huddle with an underscore between mile and high and huddle. If you want some merchandise like this hat or shirts or coffee mugs or I think baby onesies are in there, all sorts of stuff. You can go to mhhmerch.com to get your merch on. Not swag, because that word is weird. And of course, make sure you guys go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some merchandise each month. And the one thing you can do, if you can't afford to do so, through super chats or stars, which we appreciate, all of it goes to us. It supports us, helps us keep the light on. But if you can't afford to do that, which we completely understand, just take a matter of seconds and just subscribe, like, and share. As you can see on the ticker beneath us, it's just a matter of like 15 seconds, if that. Just click subscribe here on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, whichever one you're on. Like the podcast and share it. Word of mouth is such a big way to do it, and it all helps with the algorithms here on all the different sites that we broadcast on. And of course, we want to thank those who did come in and star and super chat. Michael Ronquillo, I saw you starred earlier here, but we also had Cody W coming in with a total of $9 in donations, and Max Rue coming in with a $2 out of Canada, not California, like Lance always said. Just to throw some shade on Lance, even though he's not here to defend himself. But
that's messed up.
So we appreciate those. We appreciate guys super chats and stars. Helps us again. Keep the lights on. Helps us do what we do. Helps me do this full time. Championship week's coming up. Before we get out of here, what's your prediction on who we're seeing in the Super Bowl? I'm going to go with the Bills and the Eagles.
I think the Bills are going to rough up the Chiefs. I think it's they're hot, and I don't know. The Chiefs can't start slow. I don't think they have. I don't know. So I'm going to say 28-16. No, 28-17 Bills. And then for the Eagles and the Commanders, I'm going with a surprise on this one again. Commanders 31, Eagles 28.
Nice. That'll be interesting to see. Vic Fangio has that Eagles defense playing at such a high level. They're so talented. I believe both of their defensive backs, Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell, are both in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I believe of the 5 of them, there are 2 Eagles and 2 Rams. And it's funny that both Eagles are defensive backs and both Rams guys are on the defensive front, a defensive lineman, and Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, their edge rusher. But yeah, I mean, if the Commanders can do that, that would be interesting to see. They definitely have their openings. I could see it being a high-scoring game. I can also see it being a low-scoring defensive bout, just because of the way the Eagles' defense is playing and the way that the Commanders' defense is playing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm interested to see, as long as the Bills beat the Chiefs. I don't even want the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year. That's all I care.
I want them to take the wrong flight home and everything. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I want somebody to pee in their Cheerios and burst their crap on their heads.
Is Jaden Daniels just their second chance at RG3?
Yeah. And if they're not, if they can't figure out a way to protect him, there's a good chance of him following the same injury road, because he does not protect himself. He took some hits against the Detroit Lions. He's taken hits all year. He's got to figure out a way to protect himself as a runner.
Yeah, because both of them, RG3 was on a whole nother level before he got hurt. And then,
But before we get out of here, we only have a few more minutes left before I get yelled at that we're still live. Do you have any final words?
I don't know. Everybody have a great weekend. I had one of my childhood friends, Greg, come in here. Greg Hutchinson, what's up, brother? Thank you for coming in here. Thank you for everybody coming in here. Have a great weekend. You don't just have to watch the Broncos. You can watch the Nuggets. Nuggets are doing well. I was just at the game last night and saw a full court shot that Jokic shot. It was amazing.
I saw it.
I was at the game. I was looking down at my phone. I looked up and it went in right in front of me. I was like, oh my God. But that guy he's so good. And then if you want to check out that article I was talking about with the sophomore slump, just hit me up in my my X account, Kenneth _MHH. 90% of my stuff is Bronco stuff, but I do a lot of other like funny stuff or MMA or stuff like that. And would love to have you part as to be friends with you on Twitter or X. So hope to talk to you guys on there. And if you guys have any other questions, throw them in the chat below, and I'm definitely going to check that out. And I'll answer all those, or we might even put a little segment in the next week's episode if they're good enough. So
yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you guys have a wonderful night, a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, don't drink and drive, and enjoy the championship games. See you next